Hello, it's Christian, and welcome back to my computer and Fusion 360. I will first say if my voice sounds strange and I start sneezing, it's due to I have caught something that's going around the world. No comments on that. We're gonna focus on Fusion 360. This is a question from Facebook about reproducing this thing here. Apparently a light bulb reflector of some kind or something, and I have noticed that there are a lot of people asking questions about how to reproduce something, and a lot of cases they know the tools, or sometimes they don't know the tools to use, but the problem is if they do not know where to start. And I am also only a hobbyist, I'm just an amateur, remember that, but I hope some of the thoughts I have can help you. So we're gonna reproduce this into this, so not less likely to this. And as you can see, I'll simplify some parts. If I got the dimension correctly, it's about 3 inches across this thing. So I will not do the small fillets everywhere because, yeah, they are unnecessary to create. I will only do one fillet. That's the soft edge here. You can see it over here. And I'm just trying to reproduce it as close as I can. I do not have all the dimensions, so it's a bit of guessing, but I like to share the workflow and how I think. I've noticed a lot of people are putting questions on that, like how do I think, and I do not know myself sometimes, but hopefully I can share some information. I'm sorry if I'm a bit speedy sometimes. That's a part of my personality. I'm going to remove this design here now, start over. I like to do a quite rapid things when I work in software, not to linger around with things. But now lingering, so let's start. Shall we do this correctly? Yes, new component. Rule number 1, create a component. Let's go reflect. That's enough. The first thing, of course, I want to put image as a canvas. But to make it easy to myself, I will do a rough sketch first. So I can use that to align the canvas I'm going to input. So I'm going to start a sketch on this plane here. So I'm looking from the top. I'm going to start with a circle. I think from the question, it's this. I'm working in millimeter because I'm from Europe, and I prefer to work in millimeter if I'm going to export to 3D printing, as then the STL will be in millimeters, and most slice programs import the files as millimeters, so you don't get scaling problems. But anyway, you can still use inches. So we're going to 3. That was, I think it was 3 inches across, so we're going to use that. You can do some other dimensions, of course, like that, and it transfers it over to millimeters. We're going to do some lines. We have line up here. One straight down, as you can see, it gives me the vertical constraints. 2 more lines. Why I'm doing 2 more lines? This part here to the left is a repetitive pattern. There's 14 of these cutouts, if I calculate it correctly. So I will only do 1. I don't need to do all of them. I just said I can model 1 of these. Then I can use circular pattern to move around. Let's go back to Fusion, and we have 2 lines. We now will lock them down, so we're going to go into our constraints and select symmetry. Select the 2 lines we want to have symmetry, these 2 lines, and we want them to be symmetric about this center line. And now we're going to add a dimension. I'm going to open up so we can see the sketches. It's not fully constrained. You get the pink lock or red lock when it's fully defined. Let's push a dimension between these 2. We're going to get angle. And as we know, there's 360 degrees in one full turn, and there are 14, so we divide it by 14. And by doing that, we have, like, inside these, we need to have our little cutout teeth. So what I will do now, just because I don't want the profiles to flashing here, I will do a window select. Just hold down and select everything, and go into the line type here in the sketch palette and switch it to construction lines, and finish sketch. And we have a beautiful little sketch like that. And now we don't need to look at that anymore, so we're going to maximize this window. We're going to insert a canvas. You have this icon here, just insert. Whoops, canvas from computer. I already selected basically here. Here is my little canvas picture. Open. And I'm going to select the correct plane. I will not do any type of scaling here. Let's just say OK, do nothing else, and open up the canvas over here. Right click and select calibrate. Let's move in. As you could see earlier, the diameter should be 3 inches. So let's find somewhere we have 2 connecting points. So I think that one and that one. Now it asks how far are those 2 points apart. Those are 3 inches apart. Like that. Just move out. As you see, it's not really correct place. No problem. We right click again and select edit canvas. Now we get some arrows and some ways we can move it around. These small lines here can scale it, but it's already correct scale, so I do not want to touch those. I will now just try to get it correctly inside the circle, basically. Yes, it's broken, so it's not really perfect, but that's good enough. Of course, that cutout is a bit off, so we try to rotate it. I can find a good tooth. I think that is the best one. I'm going to move it slightly so we get it in the as good as possible position. It's just for reference. As always, it's quite hard to totally reproduce something, but so this gives us something to work with. Hit OK. Of course, if you can take measurements, that's much simplifying things. Now we start our first real sketch. So we start the sketch of this plane again. Of course, these 2 lines are usable for me, so I will hit P on the keyboard to get project and project in these 2 lines and say OK. I do not want the circle because I work with arcs instead, so now I have done these 2 lines, I can wait a minute, I can project in this line too. The center line is not bad to have, like that. I will now hide the first sketch, so I only have these lines left. And now we're going to start doing some arc. S on the keyboard, start typing in arc, and I find center point arc. Click the center point. From here, you can see it turns into a square and locks. Everything is locked down, thank you. We will once again let's see if we can get another arc. We can start here to here. And you can see we get a white dot. We're going to fix that in a while. That dot is not connected. So to be a bit naughty to this, I'm just going to pull them out. Black dots are connected. White dots are not connected. So we're going to do like that. And I'm going to use coincident between that point, that line, that point, that line, that point, that line. Like that. No, it's not fully defined because we are missing some dimension. We haven't told it where these lines are. So this line here is going to be the slightly softer fillet here. We can add a dimension. I just hit D on the keyboard. You can also hit it up here. So we're going to start there. It says 15.8. Let's clean that up to 15.8 millimeters. We will dimension this one. Pull it out like that. Let's look like it's supposed to be some 12.5 maybe. And then this one. This, of course, is the most important one. I think it will be 8. That's too much. I think let's do it 7.5. This, of course, you can take a measurement to get the correct dimension of a center circle, which is going to be important. As always, it's good with all these dimensions, but take the important dimensions, like the whole outer diameter and stuff like that. So we are that far. Let's see, we have a fully defined sketch so far. We're going to do something about these lines here. The sketch I'm doing now, basically I want to get all the geometry I need later in the design. It's going to be a line from here connected to the midpoint, from here to the midpoint. And I'm going to have the same thing down here. Make sure, as you can see, it wants to add a constraint here, midpoint. I do not want the midpoint constraint. I just want these lines like that. Of course, by symmetry, I know that these 2 lines need to be the same, which they are now, if they are connected like that. And we can now add a dimension to these. We should then lock down. Let's pull it out here. It says 112. Yeah, we can look good. 12 degrees. What I simply do now is I will not use these lines later. This mostly has to get the geometry as good as I can. So I'm going to make parallel between that one and that one and that one and that one. So now they are parallel. It means it's only one dimension of freedom left in this direction. So we need to add a dimension to where we're gonna have this. We're gonna dimension. Let's do from, we can do any point you want. I'm gonna take this point to this point. This gives me the ability. So you can see the dimensions are flipping around. I want to do the dimension along this line I've done here. So I'm going to do right click, align dimension, so it stays aligned. Let's do that. 23. Yeah, that's look good. And of course, I'm gonna just highlight the center line and turn that into construction line because that's enough for me. Anything else I want to add here? I have this part here. I have these edges here. I have the edge here, edge here, edge here. I have the sides. Yeah, that's good enough for me. The problem, of course, now at this point we only have, on turning from the side, we only have a flat sketch, and that's not that useful. There was a second image of this. This is from the side. So you can see it moves up like this. I do not have a dimensions here, so you can do it different ways. I'm going to show you a way that you don't need to care about the angles of these faces if you can measure the correct dimensions. So you're going to see that in the next sketch. We're going to do a sketch from the side. Create new sketch. Turn things around. So we're going to use the plane here. That's the planes that goes straight through the earlier sketch we did. So we're going to here. Turn it around a bit, so make it a bit easier to see. To make things stable and connected, I want to use these lines here. There's a possibility to auto project within Fusion, but I like to put in the things I need myself. So I'm going to hit S on the keyboard again and use intersect. Intersect puts a point where something goes through the sketch plane. Remember, the sketch plane is standing up, so if we select this arc, you see the red dot. So we're going to need that one. I want that one. All the arcs, of course, and I like to have where these are, so I can select any of these because they're intersecting the same point. So I'm going to select this like that. We have 6 things we selected. I'm going to hit OK, and we can for now hide our first sketch just to see. Yes, we have our beautiful little points. Thank you. Now we will start sketching the profile from the side. I'm gonna hit L for line tool, and we start. Yeah, we know the first person here is gonna be horizontal. From here, it needs to go up a bit, and then it goes from here to here, and really all the way out here. But I am following the center points. I go to here. Here's gonna be flat. I got the parallel. You can see these 2 lines. So these 2 lines are gonna be parallel. And then it goes up all the way to this point here. And then it goes straight out like that. Just hit escape to stop everything. So that's our basic shape line. No dimension so far. We're going to add some more lines. Hit L again, but now I'm going to change the line type to construction. You can also use constraints immediately, but I like to use construction lines here. So I'm going to do from here to here, the corresponding points, up to there, to there, and like that. Of course, these lines are not really nice now, so we're going to use horizontal or vertical constraints on these, so it gets locked in horizontally, like that, and that one is already done. You get an over constraint if you hit something like that. By doing this, I have now locked in these points in this direction. The vertical are slot in, so basically we need to dimension this. So let's do that. Dimension here. I'm just guessing, let's do that 3 millimeters, and we're going to dimension this line here. 8, let's do it 9. As you can see, as soon as I put in these height dimensions here, everything gets locked down, so I don't need to care about the angles on these faces. Just by using strict distance dimensions, I get things locked down. So now we have basically done our 2 sides we need to see from this, from the top and from the side. Finish sketch. I like to do one more sketch. I want this face here, or this profile here, to be up here, because there's going to be a flat face up here. It's faster to do that immediately. So we're going to do an offset plane. Select the plane we want to move, this one. where we want to move it. We want to move it up here. So we're going to do extend, change distance to object. Click on any of these 2 points. The plane doesn't end up over here, it ends up over here, but is now in the correct height. So we're going to hit OK. We get the construction over here. We're going to open up as we can see our plane. We're going to create a new sketch. You can select the plane out here, or you can select the plane directly from the browser to the left, like that. And what do we want up here? We want this. We want these 2 lines and this arc. We're going to use it for 2 things. Hit OK and finish sketch. And if we turn this around now, you can start to see things. So we're going to hide the canvas for now to make it a bit easier to see. So we have our bottom sketch, which is basically has to help us with the geometry. We have our height profile here, and we have this part up here. So let's start creating things. We're going to switch from solid to surface. I'm using surface because if we look at this, it feels like a flat thing where everything has the same thickness. And it's easier, I think, to start with the surface, which have a 0 thickness, create all the features I want, and then add the thickness. So let this over here again. We are going to start with the easy one up here, patch. Just select this sketch, hit OK, and now we have a nice patch up here. Now I want to do these 2 angle faces moving down here, that are those 2 faces here. A lot of people want to use loft. Loft is very good, but loft can be very naughty. Loft sometimes create bad geometry, which can be hard to use for fillets and stuff like that later. So I will use sweep. Go up here, create, still surface, surface sweep. And what I want to sweep, I want to sweep these 2 lines. Make sure change selection is off. If that's on, it's going to select the whole profile immediately. Turn that off. The profile can be these 2 lines. Or it says 1 profile here because it cares a bit, but it's these 2 lines. The path. Once again, change selection is off. Otherwise, it will select the whole path all the way down. I only want this line here. As you can see, what sweep does, it takes these 2 lines and just let them follow this path and create whatever we want. Yes, it's outside. We will solve that later. Just for now, we want this. The good thing with sweeping, as this is from a horizontal here, the end is going to be horizontal down here. So we're going to just hit OK. And wait for fusion sometimes. Now we are getting somewhere. Now we need the lower parts down here. So we're going to do a revolve. Revolve takes a sketch and spins it around an axis. Once again, I've turned chaining off so I can select the things I want to use. Of course, we're going to use... What are you doing this for? I don't want a full profile. Sometimes you have to select and deselect things. You can see there, by select and deselecting chaining, it made it correctly. If chaining is on, it's going to select the whole profile, which I don't want. There's too much. Turn off chaining. Fusion can be a bit confusing with some things like that sometimes. It misunderstands the input. So we're going to select this line, of course. Select this line and this line. We have no more line here right now because we really want this face to go further out, but we will solve that a bit later. Axis. I'm going to take the center axis. Normally it just is 360 degrees. We could set this to symmetry and select the correct distance we want here, but as I've said earlier, this thing here is already outside of where I want it to be, so I'm going to need to do some trimming. So in this case, I will just let it be 360 degrees. This is like which way you like to work. I'm going to hit OK. So we got that far. The problem is, of course, we are missing the face that is supposed to fill up here. What we can do with surfaces is simply extend. Select this edge here, and it pops out. It happens to be set to 50 millimeters already. Only thing I want to make sure it goes beyond this point, so there's too much material now, so I can trim it down later. So with that, I'm very pleased. Hit OK. So now we have some really sweetly nice bodies. So what we're going to do now, if we look from top, we have our pie shape here, which is the part we're interested in. So we're going to use that to trim. Trim is the scissor up here. And we're going to select this line. And we also want this line, but you can't select it directly. So you hold down Control on the keyboard and select this line. And you get a cutting tool like this. And what do we going to cut? Of course, This part here turns red. We want this little corner here. Sorry, I need a cough. And this little corner here. Hit OK. And by doing that, we have reduced a lot of the things, which was too much. Of course, now this part under here is not necessary. So once again, we're going to do trim. We're going to select this body here. You can see I'm going to move the bodies too. Sorry about that. We have 3 bodies right now. I'm going to select this body in the middle here. The part we don't want is the one below here. And OK. And we started to get close. To make it a bit more visible, I'm going to turn off the sketches. And the thing I want to do now is I want to connect all these parts. We have 3 different bodies. We're going to use stitch for that. So we're going to select 1, 2, 3 bodies. Of course, you can select your browser too. It's up to you. You can see green lines is where Fusion going to stitch, and it also shows some green lines here on the edges. Don't care about that right now. Hit OK, and now we have 1 body. You can see we're getting somewhere. Now we can do some fillers here, we can do some fillers later. But as I said, I will not spend time filling in all these small edges. As we are talking about a 3-inch object, these edges, we're going to 3D print it. This edge is going to be quite soft anyway, but I want this edge here. So I want to show you that you can do fillers before you thicken. And when it protrudes through, we can do S, fillet. Fillet works on solids and on surfaces. Fillet. I want this corner here. You give it a 3mm radius. You can see it softens it nicely. Could of course also do it with the edge down here. Want to do that? You can do multiple fillets if you want to do that. But I'm just going to focus on this one, like that. And then I will now. I've done 1 part. I need the other 13. S again. Circular pattern. Bodies. Yes, please. This body. Around this axis, and I want total of 14 parts. You can see we're getting somewhere. You can select the bodies here, or we can do a window selection. Hold down the mouse button, select everything, and hit the stitch command, and OK. And by doing that, we're now back to 1 body. Now this is a surface body, and here are some things we can select to do. I will just now simply thicken this. There are some problems when you thicken. When you thicken, you add material to both sides of a thing like this. You can do it on 1 side or 2 sides. There's some different ways to do it. The thing is, if I add material on the underside here, you have to remember that these faces are pointing outwards, so this material can point a bit outside. We're going to have a look at that. We're going to do thicken. Thicken. What do I want to thicken? I want to thicken this little body here. I've already done thickness 1, and I tell it to do it symmetric. Symmetric means it adds material on both sides, and it adds the thickness on both sides. So the ending product here is going to be 2mm. But the thing I want to talk about is if I turn it around, you can see that these little small edges will protrude out if we do it on the underside. So we can change this to do it on 1 side. Let's see which side that does on the bottom. So if we go back here and put a minus side in front, it only does it upwards, so we don't get these points protruding outside. But I think I want to do it -2 anyway. Maybe that's too much. You can see it moves in a bit. 2mm thickness. Yeah, let's do it with that. It hides the surface body we did earlier. If we want to, I like to clean up a file sometimes, so I will highlight that by left clicking and then right click, and down here delete doesn't work, but remove. What remove does, it removes it from the file. If you go back in the timeline, the body still exists, but it cleans up things a bit, so we only have a solid body left. I just like to have it like that. And by doing that, we have something like this. This is a starting point. Of course, if we would 3D print this with a lot of overhangs here, and it depends on how good or bad your 3D printer are and what to do, but this is the basic geometry of this shape. Let's do like this, and here you see it. So that's how I would take a picture like this and end up with something like this. If you want to make it more fancy, of course, you can add fillets to all the edges and yeah, soften up things, and that all depends on how you want to manufacture things. So with that said, I hope this can be useful to somebody. Take care, see you around, and bye.